something profound about the risk-taking that we hear in both cases today. And we wonder, how does that speak to us? How does that stir us as individuals and as a community? Are we willing to step out and go? To take these risks in following? Oftentimes it's much easier to do it as a big community than as an individual. It can be easier to come together as a people and take a risk. Calvary did that numerous times. Working on peace issues here in the church. Proclaiming in the midst of wars in the Middle East that we were going to work for peace. Proclaiming in the midst of a broken system in our church and in the world that we would make sure that people who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, as we recognize this RIC Sunday or Reconciling in Christ Sunday, would be included in the larger umbrella of this community as well as the church. Recently, there's been strides to really have deep, hard, and heartfelt conversations around race and racial justice. To talk about how do all lives matter and Black lives matter. How do we make sure that all people are cared for? That there is equal treatment and care under the law. We step out and put ourselves out there as a community in taking risks, in dreaming God's dream here in this place for God's people. And yet, what happens when it's an individual call? Saying, maybe it's time to leave the job that you've held for the past 7 years or 10 years. To step out and serve God and God's people in a new way. And what happens when you're not so sure about the paycheck coming in, or the voices around you, or how you're going to live that out fully and faithfully? What happens when you are called to be honest with yourself or with others? To sit down and have a conversation around something that has happened to you in your life, that you covered up or buried, and yet perhaps it's the one thing that is going to give you life and engage you with others, fulfill you and give a sense of purpose, and allow others to know that they are not alone, but that God's promise is there for them. That you're willing to go to Nineveh, to have a conversation, to say God's love is still there for all of us, embracing us, challenging us to live in a new way. Then the question is, how do we as a community support and walk with each and every person? How do we hold them fast in the midst of difficult choices and changes when God is calling them in a profound and new direction? How do we hold one another fast when we let go of the nets and go to proclaim God's realm here and now? I want you to pay attention to the words here at the beginning of Mark. These are the first words that Jesus speaks in the Gospel of Mark. And I think there's something wonderful about the first words of Jesus in each of the Gospels. And it gives you a sense of what the mission is to be about and what is going to be happening. And here in Mark, Jesus is proclaiming that God is not far off, but that God has drawn near. That God's realm, God's kingdom is in-breaking now. Not far away, but now. And it's in the lives of individuals. Peter, Andrew, James, and John. It's in the lives of people who come individually to become a whole, a new community. This afternoon, we gather downstairs. And we come as individuals. Let's be honest, we all come with our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own frustrations, our own joys, our own agendas. And we come together, leaving our daily lives to be a new community and to make decisions for the good of the whole. It is also an opportunity for us to keep dreaming about God's realm and God's inbreaking is about here and now today. How are we going to be transformed and equipped and sent out? You see, it's not a stagnant vision. It's not one where we get to sit back and relax and say, oh, somebody else will do it. It's not one where we get to, as some people say, sip our mint juleps and have peppermint bonbons and count on everyone else to step up. This is about drawing together as a community, living out God's realm here in Minneapolis and in our world. It means taking chances, some that are going to flop. That's an honest statement too. Some of our ministry and some of our connections aren't always going to succeed, or they're going to come out in ways far different than what we expected. And sometimes we even pout about that. I can be as much of a Jonah as others can when things don't quite work out the way that I want them to work out. But it's precisely there that God challenges us again and invites us into the risk-taking as people of God. So whether you are an outlier and someone who really doesn't want to hear God's call or purpose for you today, or the outlier who's willing to go, risk it all and head off to a foreign country and do service there, or give up your job to work in a low-income school and make sure that our education system is better. Whatever your purpose is, today we meet in this middle ground where we struggle as a community, where we think about God, how God is calling us, and where God is calling us, and we go. And perhaps, like the police officers and the clergy who sit down to talk about call, perhaps when we get together and sit down and talk about call, some new things will be revealed. Some opportunities will come to the fore. And we will hear in the voice of others their gifts, their joys and their challenges. And say, wow, that's really incredible. I've been thinking about that too. Or, do you realize what a gift you have to this community or to this area with who you are? Have you ever thought about this? Have you ever wondered if this is possible? And all of a sudden, there is an unleashing of God's dream for us. Let us step forward in that boldness and that vision, casting aside the nets, following in this one who proclaims new life, and that God's realm is here